Hello, I'm attorney Rachel Fitzgerald with Fitzgerald Law Firm, and I'm here with a prior client of mine named Hope. And Hope has a very interesting story regarding her work injury and subsequent surgeries and sort of the struggles after that and adjusting to a new normal with life, given her permanent restrictions. So
I was at a paper mill for 14 and a half years. I, at that time, enjoyed my job up into the injury. Paper mill is very dangerous, but what had happened was cleaning off condensation on a very large roller that led my hand going into a nip, which costed me 2 fingers.
yeah.
And fortunately cost me my job.
So when you say that the paper mill is dangerous, because obviously in Northeast Wisconsin or most of Wisconsin, that's a fairly common work environment. But in your particular case, what did you find to be sort of the dangerous conditions or the things you had to really watch out for?
It's nip points in every section of the machine. It's a very fast-paced machine. We never were fully staffed. The job is very, very physical.
Yeah.
Where I had got my hand caught, there was no guard. So after my hand was getting sucked into the machine, they don't know how I was coherent to pull the e-stop. I had no teammates around, so I didn't know where my guys were. I randomly, don't know why, I walked to the bathroom, briefly looked at it, came back, seen one of my guys, told him to grab some toweling, and he's like, we have to get you to the hospital.
Yeah.
So they called 911, was removed off the premise to St. Cat's. They told me right away there was nothing that they could do for me, so we're taking you to Freighter out of Milwaukee. I was under, my first surgery was over 7 hours long.
Yeah.
They took parts of my foot to try to graft my fingers back. And then from there, it was a lot of physical therapy, a lot of doctor's appointments, a lot of psychological appointments. And I was with Dr. Van Zeeland at the Hand to Shoulder Center here in Appleton. And he had to do 6 more surgeries on me.
Right.
That.
Yeah. So you had a total of 7 surgeries on your hand, is that right?
Yes.
And the first one was the first one the most significant one?
Yes.
And then, so a lot of little surgeries after that ultimately resulted in the loss of how many fingers?
2 amputations,
Yeah.
my pointy finger and my middle finger.
Yeah. And that's obviously a lot of surgeries to go through, a lot of healing periods and time to recuperate. And a lot of times, not even talking about the pain and the symptoms and the stress, but just the amount of time it takes to go to these appointments, especially in Hope's case. She's dealing with specialists. She lives in a more rural area. The travel time, the amount of exhaustion after the treatments and the therapies and so forth. Those healing periods are a big chunk of a work comp case where you are entitled to benefits when there's no way you could work during that healing period. And that is when people are supposed to receive work comp benefits. A lot of the times the case is already denied by then, so those weekly benefits are adding up and people are entitled to them and a lot of times not receiving them. So not even talking about ability to do work-related activities, they cannot even adequately do activities of daily living. So these injuries can be, very disruptive in just normal life, in addition to being able to, do a job. So you had some subsequent anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder. So really common in, very traumatic injuries at work, or witnessing something traumatic, or just experiencing a severe injury. Obviously, that trauma response is very common. I know you had some symptoms with anxiety and so forth, and you really weren't able to bring yourself back to go into that type of work environment. Is that right?
Impossible.
Yeah. Is even with the treatment that's recommended and the medications that are there to help, it still can be a big struggle for people. Just to, re-enter the workforce and deal with those types of hazards. And for a lot of people, that's all they know how to do. So that can be very limiting if it kind of takes away your ability to do any type of past relevant work that you've been able to do, in other chapters of your life. So
another big thing when you're out in public, you get questions. What happened?
Yeah.
And then it's hard to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's typically kids.
Yeah.
That are ones that what happened to your hand.
Yeah.
And you just tried briefly, I got hurt at work.
Yeah.
And it's the end.
Yeah, so and that's a good point too, is some injuries, it's obvious when you look at somebody if they have an injury or a disfigurement, and that's an important element of a value of a case as well, because that perception of a disability, some are not obvious to the eye, but some are, and there's extra value to that as well, many times in a work comp case. So, we did not go to court for her case. Instead, it's settled.
Working with this law firm, it was very simple. I was very satisfied. If I had a question, I would call. They were on top of it. My answer immediately would be a question to answer.
Yeah, and that's something that, I really do pride myself on, is there's 3 legal assistants here that just know everything about every case just as much as I do. There's always somebody here to answer your questions right away. There's no real wait time. And so, some of these cases get to the point where they're very complicated and there's a lot of questions, need answers immediately, and we definitely do make that a #1 priority. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, just very satisfied.
Really, that makes me so happy to hear, because this is a serious injury that happened to you, and obviously you are entitled to as much as we can possibly get you on this work comp injury. Well, thanks for sharing your story, and we're happy to have you here, and that's it. Thank you. Bye-bye.